Okay, so welcome, everybody. My name is Josh Rapoon. I'm a evangelist for What School Could Be and the host of the What School Could Be podcast. Just briefly here, I'm going to have you here, or I'm going to have Mel Ching introduce herself because she's my constant partner in work in the What School Could Be community. Mel?
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. My name is Mel. I'm the Director of Community and Engagement at What School Could Be, and I'm based in Honolulu, and I work with Josh and Jennifer for quite a lot, all the time. So happy to be here.
Awesome. So we are doing something very special today. There are these two series that have been running in the What School Could Be community, and then we started making them available to people outside the What School Could Be community. One of them is called the Motley Crew Discussion Group. And the premise of that particular discussion group was that we would listen to a podcast in advance of a discussion, and then we would gather virtually from sea to shining sea from all over the country, even folks from elsewhere in the world, and we would discuss the podcast. We expanded that to include readings that we would do or videos that we would watch in advance, and then we would come together to discuss. And it's been an absolute joy. Amazingly, over 2 years, we've been doing our Motley Crew discussion group. So some of the folks here are from that group. And then the other series that we've been running is called Eye on Student Protagonism. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer D. Klein to explain the premise behind Eye on Student Protagonism, which we've mashed up together with Motley Crew.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's really a pleasure to be here with so many students and have this opportunity to hear from so many people. So Eye on Student Protagonism is an event or a series that we've been doing for, I don't know, about a year now, maybe a little bit more. And the idea is to make sure that we're listening to students about what's working and what's not working in education. I think we often get ourselves into a little bit of an echo chamber among educators. We all know what we think would make education better. And that idea of stepping outside the echo chamber and making sure we actually talk to students and find out from them what's working for you and why, and what do we need to do more of and what do we need to do less of is really the whole idea. So we're thrilled today to be able to talk to students who have been experiencing the Mastery Transcript, and who are going to share a great deal about their experiences along the way, some of their stories connected to the transcript, and what it's felt like to be the protagonists or main characters in their own education. Very excited here as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth Blankenship, whose history with What School Could Be goes way back, way back, 10 years ago, right? With Most Likely to Succeed, and all sorts of other things that have happened over the past 10 years, Beth. And so we've been having great conversations with Beth, and in the process of thinking through this mashup of Motley Crew and Eye on Student Protagonism, the idea surfaced when we heard from Beth about the students working to develop and design and develop kind of the Madison approach to mastery. We just immediately thought this is something we have to do. So in a way, Beth, this is a really special moment because it is the end of a school year. And the students, right, that we have here are all seniors. And wow, amazing to get them right here just days before they graduate. So Beth, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can provide a little bit of a preamble, and then we're going to start hearing from the students right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mel, for having us here and giving us this opportunity to share with you our journey and experiences. And also, yes, as you said, I mean, the seniors that are going to be talking to you tonight, they are, like all my seniors and students, very special to me. But we've been on a lot of different paths together and, kind of all gone through, obviously, these past 3 years together. And it's just really awesome to give them the opportunity to share kind of what this has meant to them, which is more important than what it's meant to me or the system. So I'm just going to do a quick, like the students who are here sharing, I'd love to have you all just share your name, just so people can kind of see you and know who you are as you pop in and out. Maybe also, if you feel comfortable sharing, where you are going off to when you leave us. And anything else you want to say? What else? So I'll yell at Kira first because I see you first.
Hi everyone, I'm Kira and I'm going to the University of Kentucky in the fall.
Awesome. How about Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison and I'm going to the University of Minnesota.
Awesome.
Yes, go Janelle. Janelle is in very, very rural Minnesota. She's happy to hear what you just said. There we go.
Yay. Mal?
Hi, my name is Mallory Vertman, and I'll be going to the University of Virginia.
Awesome. How about
Awesome.
Layla?
I'm Layla, and I'm going to the University of Pittsburgh this fall.
Awesome.
And Leslie?
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm going to be going to the University of Massachusetts, Boston in the fall. I'm excited to be here.
Last but
Glad
not
to
least,
have you.
Avery.
Hi, my name is Avery, and I will also be going to the University of Virginia in the fall.
Awesome. And we
Awesome,
have
Avery.
a couple of students who couldn't be here with us because they both play soccer and they both made it to the regional tournament. So Aiden, I believe, is going to UVA. Is that right? I think he told me that recently. And Danica, does anybody remember where Danica is headed off to school?
It's going to
Danica's in
Clemson.
Clemson. That's it. Okay. So their names might come up. So I just wanted to honor them as well. So I also have a partner in crime. I have many partners in crime at my school and in my life. And so a colleague of mine, Derek Ronzon, is here and ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Derek Ronzon. Like most of the students that just spoke, I'm in my 18th year, only it's my 18th year at Madison. All of the best years have been with Beth, so I'll kick it back to her.
Thank you. I pay him to say a lot of things. So yes, so this mastery transcript, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context as to how this came about and why we went down this road. And then it's all students all the time. So get ready, kiddos. You'll have a lot to share. So mastery transcript, was something that I had been exposed to by going to INACOL and now Aurora conferences as part of different assessment for learning communities and had heard about Mastery Transcript. And also I very much, I tell people, a portfolio pusher. Like I really believe strongly in students curating evidence of their intellectual creations and sharing that beyond just the teacher who's grading it, and making sure that we honor all of the amazing things that students create and do. And so to me, the Mastery Transcript seemed to be a way to take what we were doing as a school with, school-based portfolios that we were asking students to curate and kind of elevating it to a different audience. And so that was kind of the impetus behind it all. Another little side story to it all is I also, in that realm, many of the students, or all the students here today, were part of something called a cross-curricular cohort. And it was a requirement in that cohort to curate evidence of completion and intellectual artifacts of the different cross-curricular skills that we had named, and to then present that. We had badging, so a student, and I might ask someone, just beware, someone's going to be jumping in here pretty soon to talk about this, to badge, let's say for research. And so they would have to present their evidence that they were growing in their research skill to myself, to the librarians, to their parents, to other people. And in doing so, you know, it kind of validated for them, you know, their growth in the skill. And so that's something that we were doing in our cross-curricular cohort for about 60 students from 10th and 11th grade. And so the students had been kind of doing that process. And so we thought, oh, the students would be ready to kind of take it prime time, right? There wasn't a lot of mind shift that needed to happen so that they knew how to curate evidence and talk about evidence and showcase their evidence of learning, etc. So it's going to be a random choice here. So I am curious, Leslie, do you like going all the way back to 10th grade? I know it's crazy to think how much older you are now. Do you have recollections of like what it meant to you to kind of share and kind of prove, right, that you were learning these skills and growing in these skills? What memories do you have of that?
Yeah, so in the moment of kind of we're assigned to reflect on our growth and development of all these essential skills for a student, it was just kind of like, all right, let me go talk about this. Let me write some stuff about what my experience had been like. But looking back on it, I think it was a really useful tool in not only making me look at my learning, but recognize it, internalize it, and think about how it's actually impacted me. So the reflection gives me an opportunity to see what the benefit that I'm getting from my education is. Because I think a lot of students get caught up in the minutiae of school. Let me get this assignment done. Let me get the grade. Let me get past this class. And they don't actually think about like, what's the broader impact of this? What benefit does this have for me in the long run? So doing these reflections kind of spread out throughout the year and regularly thinking back on my learning, connecting with other people about it, that really helped me stay in touch with my education beyond just getting a grade.
But as a 10th grader, you weren't like thinking that. What, some other people jump in, like what, when you first heard about, ooh, create this portfolio and defend your learning, what were you thinking about that whole process? I'm curious.
Okay.
I think no, go ahead.
Allison,
No, go
you
ahead.
got it.
No, you got it.
Okay.
We'll both go, but you can go first.
Okay. So I'm gonna be so honest. When I first heard about it, I was like, oh, more work. Like, we're gonna have to do all of this on top of the assignments we're doing and on top of the tests we're doing. And I really was kind of a little bit against it. I don't know if Miss Blankenship remembers my pushback, but I was definitely not 100% for it. But then after we started doing it more, I could get more behind it and more enthused about putting in that extra effort. But at the beginning, it was definitely like a shift in perspective and mindset for sure.
Avery, what was it that sort of tipped you in the direction of seeing its value?
Just reflecting on it, because I hadn't been doing a lot of reflecting. Like Leslie said, I was sort of focused on just the grades and getting my GPA there and getting all the classes. So I didn't really understand the point. But then after I was doing more reflecting and understanding how I actually was growing and kind of seeing how it had benefited me to reflect and just take a minute to slow down, it really like impacted my perspective on the whole system.
And I think this would be a perfect moment to bring Mark's question just into this part of the discussion as you're talking about the early, going back to the 10th grade. He's already asking here, how did the work affect grades? So we'll just keep that in mind as you jump in. And Mallory, I think if you want to jump in.
Yes, of course. So I believe my first initial reaction, Miss Blankenship knows this as well, I didn't understand kind of what she wanted us to do by reflecting, because I was very set in the ways of how grades were going to affect college. I feel like ever since I was a freshman, I was very college driven. So I just didn't understand, and I had a hard time getting behind like this mastery thing, because in my mind I was like, everything should be mastery the second I do it. Like this first time I try something, I should be getting an A. And then when I wasn't, I remember coming to her and I'd be like, I don't understand. And she's like, how can you perfect something the first time? Like, how can you just look at something and do it? It takes time. And so that definitely took some time getting adjusted to, because I think how school is structured, we're so expected to be perfect every time, to have that 4.0 GPA, to always get A's. And so coming back from that, like, how she's right, how can that be a reflection, especially in a course like hers, AP laying, where you learn to write these certain styles and these certain types of essays. You can't know how to do it perfectly the first time. Writing isn't like math where you can just learn it and do it. You need to practice, and you need to understand how to organize and synthesize your thoughts. And I think it takes a lot of the pressure off the kids to think they have to be perfect first time around. And that was hard for me, because I wasn't having it at first. I was like, it has to be perfect. And I think that's just a lot of the pressure we all feel societally now.
Sorry, I just want to add a story on. Do you guys remember sophomore year when Mr. Seiler gave us, that was our science teacher, he gave us a nice long lecture about how C's used to be the average and how C's should be your goal, your expected grade. And we all kind of were like, whoa, okay, because everyone was expecting to get A's the first try in that class, and chemistry is hard. I'm not good at chemistry. It was a difficult class, but I think he was kind of maybe coming at it from a different place, but he was summing up the goal of I think a lot of mastery transcript stuff, and the educational shift is that we don't want students to be driven to get an A, to get 100%. We want them to be driven to understand the material, and that comes on a learning curve. Like, you're not going to get something immediately, and that especially starting Miss Blankenship's class, my junior year AP Lang, like that was I was not getting A's at the beginning of the year. I don't think anyone was. And that doing an AP class, a difficult AP class in combination with the cohort, was definitely a learning opportunity. But I think that really demonstrated to me what the goal of mastery transcripts were, and the entire cohort, and the broader goal of education and all of that.
Jennifer, I think our conversation has just gone very organic here, right?
Absolutely,
this is fabulous. So Derek, you've got your hand up. Go.
Yes, thank you. I was going to just jump in and answer Jane's question about GPAs at our school. Sure. So within FCPS, we are kind of a pilot group at Madison High School for Mastery Transcript Learning Records. And we do continue to have the traditional transcript for our students, where their grades are calculated and represented. But to kind of piggyback on that as well, and I think our students just did a wonderful job of kind of touching on it, is we kind of have a system in place where our students have the opportunity to practice and get feedback from their teacher. And that feedback is often tied to a grade and to a rubric, but those practice attempts and that learning journey doesn't actually factor into the student's grade. That's where they have their chances to take risks and experiment and try things that they might otherwise not be willing to do if it was directly tied to a grade. Ultimately, they do take assessments, and those grades do count, and they get natural grade replacements as they grow and improve with their skills throughout the year. But I just wanted to jump in and answer that question for Jane. So thank you.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
appreciate that. I appreciate that point, actually, and I want to kind of probe as a follow-up. If I know that Mastery, it sounds like I've heard from schools where Mastery Transcript Consortium is instead of grades as well. So you all have obviously navigated some kind of a balance there. I wonder if we could understand that a little bit better. And then I want to make sure we go back to the students as well. But I'm curious about that balance between the grade. And because I agree with what you just said, Derek, I don't think that students will take the same level of intellectual risk when they know that there's a grade attached to it. And I'd be curious to hear if the students agree with that, or what your perspective is. But I'm curious, first of all, about that balance, Beth, if you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so I kind of took us all the way back, 2 years ago, when in the cohort there, before Mastery Transcript, when we were, the students were curating a portfolio based on the cross-curricular skills. They were getting a grade from me and their other two teachers, a history teacher and a science teacher, on their assignments, as well as their curation of their portfolio and their presentation of their growth over time. So that was all grade, slightly more traditional within what we imagine. So with our Mastery Transcript, when we did this, we knew Fairfax County, right, our school, we're not going to get rid of the regular transcript, right? That was not going to happen. So luckily, Mastery Transcript has a number, of different avenues to utilize the same process, but with a different product. And so we did the Mastery Learning Record for these students, and it's kind of an additional way to showcase their abilities. We did not ditch our traditional transcript. We did the Mastery Record. I understand that Mastery Transcript has also now, they have a progress tracker on the skills, which is now another product that is going to be wonderful. So we opted in with our pilot with these students to just do the Mastery Learning Record, which was very aligned to here are the competencies and skills, and students provided evidence and kind of knew that they had met those competencies. And I see from Janelle, you're asking, did you start first with Mastery Record, then move to the transcript? Yeah, we have never gone to the transcript. We're still in the Mastery Record land. As we go forward in our, next steps, I think we will still be staying with the learning record and adding in the progress tracker, because that looks very promising for, students as well. And has the curriculum been reimagined since the focus is on growth in skills? So at our school, we also have had a great shift to focusing on skills as the outcome and content as the vehicle to demonstrate the skill ability. We also have a very strong portrait of a graduate in our district, and a profile of the graduate in the state. So those existed. And then we, in our cohort, we had these skills. So a lot of skills, yes, that language of skill as the ultimate outcome was also something that was in place that made layering on the Mastery Transcript Learning Record very possible. And let's go to a student. Do students feel
So,
that's a great
Beth,
question?
let's hold off on that one, and let's go, Allison, maybe we just go to you and pick up where we were a minute ago with 10th grade, and now thinking about your skill development and these questions that have been asked.
Yes, thinking back to 10th grade, I think kind of what everyone else said, to add on, we were all confused because, I mean, I think Miss Blankenship remembers this. It was like, so we're gonna do this portfolio, and like there's gonna be this thing, and I don't really know how we're gonna do that yet, but we're gonna do it, so like don't worry about it. And that is very concerning as a student, to feel like your teachers are like also in this together. It was very like, it felt like one giant experiment, and we're all kind of like, well, I hope someone knows what we're doing, because I remember us walking out of class and looking around like, do you guys know what's happening? Because I definitely don't. And people would ask me, and I'm like, why are you looking at me? I don't know. Like, so I think that once we kind of moved forward into it, it definitely started to make a lot more sense for me. And I was like totally on board with it, though at first it felt very like overwhelming, of like, we didn't really have like, it didn't feel very planned out. So it kind of felt very much open-ended, and a lot of it was so very much like, you can choose how you want to present this, which is very different from usually in classes where it's, this is what we're going to do, this is how you're going to do it, and if you don't do it this way, then you're not going to get a good grade. Whereas this was like, well, you can kind of do it how you want. So that was like, felt like a lot. I know for me, as someone who loves to plan, it was like, you want me to make my own plan? I don't know what I'm doing. So, but I think once we got into it and I kind of embraced the, everyone's going to kind of have a different looking portfolio, it was so fun to like be able to choose the things I was really proud of from that year and we had worked so hard on, and like present them to everyone. And then I think kind of even now we're moving into, at Madison, my classes that aren't cohort classes are moving towards more, we have skill-based things that are more like, this is our communication grade, this is our collaboration grade. It's much more kind of in these categories than just having, here's this essay, let's write it, and then we're going to move on. But yeah, I think it's very, and then kind of once we moved to Mastery Transcript, and Miss Blankenship was like, I was going and asking for my college recommendation letter, and she was like, yes, but and I have this thing. And I was like, here we go again. But once we saw it and we started doing it, it was actually quite a bit easier. And honestly, it was so much easier having gone through the very unplanned DIY kind of mastery transcript idea we had in cohort to this much more, it felt like you were kind of putting it in this map. And while you do get to very much make it your own, you're kind of plugging it in. It felt much easier, and I did not feel anywhere near as stressed, and it was much more enjoyable, and it was more of just like an added piece. I think someone was asking, was this like, do people feel like this kind of helped with colleges? And this was very much an added piece to our transcripts. We had our regular ones, and as someone who didn't have very many extracurriculars, this was so great to feel like I could showcase everything I had worked so hard for in class, that usually schools just see that grade and that's what they see. But like behind that A or that B was like this paper I worked on for months that I was so proud of, and it was so fun to be able to like show that and be like, here's what I did work on, here's what I have worked on, and someone actually gets to see that besides your teacher. It really felt like adding so much more to a transcript.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome, Allison. Layla, I wonder if you could pick up the story, but also I would love to add in the layer of confidence over the course of 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and your journey along with Beth and everybody else that you were with. I wonder if you were aware of a growing level of confidence in your own skills because you were reflecting on them, the ability to communicate, the ability to write, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, so going into my freshman year and joining cohort, I was very introverted. I wasn't very outgoing. I didn't talk to many people. And so going back like in person sophomore year, I was like already struggling, and I was doing a sport, and I was like, it was a lot. And I did feel like a lot of the things that we did in class like helped me. But at the time, like I didn't really know that. And then my junior year, I was presenting something that we did at the end of the year where we had to show them a project, like our class, a project that we had made. And I like was presenting it, and I wasn't nervous like at all. And I was like, wait, this is very different than who I was freshman year, who was like scared to unmute in class and just like would never talk to people. So I definitely like, I grew on that part. I think presenting is such a big part of cohort, and Miss Blankenship, she pushes it so much. She's like, you just got to present, like you can do it. And so like that really helped me. And I know that's something that I'm going to use like in college and just like in my future. And it's so important. And like last year I took criminal justice, and we did a lot of presentations in that class. And a lot of the students, I had noticed that they were like very nervous when they were going up and presenting to our teacher. But when I did it, I was like, okay, this is fine. It's nothing like that serious. And I think that's like the biggest thing that cohort has like taught me. And I think like I have learned how to write, yes, and I have learned how to like communicate better with people and my teachers. But I think that's like the main thing that I think cohort should pride itself on is I think everyone here, like all the students have become like really amazing presenters. If you haven't heard them already, they're great.
Wow, yes, the evidence is mounting very quickly here. Kira, what are your recollections now, having heard your peers talk about this?
Okay, so I actually didn't do cohort in 10th grade, so I wasn't there for like the initial confusion of like the defensive learning presentations and stuff. But I remember when I did get that in 11th grade, when we did something kind of similar, I was also very confused. But I had a lot of really great classmates who helped me out. And I think that just like the defensive learning and looking back on the skills really, like Layla said, it helped confidence a lot because I feel like I've always gotten very similar grades in like classes, like so across like science, English, math, history, that sort of thing. So I never felt really confident in any of my skills. I was kind of like, oh, like I'm okay at all of these, like whatever. But looking back and reflecting on the skills, I felt like I was kind of able to say like, oh, like when I look at this, I feel like I am really good at analysis and I feel like I've grown a lot and I can see that through all these projects that I've looked back on. And I feel like it's helped me build sort of a foundation almost by being able to look at what I have my strengths in and where I need to improve.
You know,
Wow.
Josh, if I can jump in for a second, that was
Yep.
great, Kira. And I think a lot of these answers are making me think about a term that Guy Claxton uses in his writing. He's an Australian educator, and he talks about the importance of learning to speak Learnish. And he refers to it as a language, right? The language of Learnish is that language that we use to describe what we're good at, what we're working on, how we learn. So you all have talked a lot about the skill sets, and I'm curious if you can take it even a step further in terms of how you now understand yourself as a learner and how this experience has impacted that sense of like what do I need to be able to learn well? What helps me? What are the things that I need to advocate for when I go to college? Do you know what I mean? Like that ability to kind of understand yourselves as a learner. I wonder if any of you might
Yeah.
speak to that. I'm not a big fan of just calling on students. It always feels like I'm victimizing rather than allowing you to volunteer to share if somebody has an insight. Didn't mean to make for a long silence, but
I can go.
yeah.
So I have definitely improved in my general, like, understanding connection to myself as a student. I'd like to already consider myself as an introspective person who's pretty aware of their mental ongoings, but actively not only thinking but talking about my cognitive processes. Why did I make that decision? Where did this idea come from? Really worked for me. It has made me a more confident speaker and thinker. And I've developed a lot more skills, my ability to communicate effectively with very complex ideas to people. And I have just generally improved a lot, and I hope, in how I interact with learning, and I know myself better now. I think after being in the cohort, I experienced a lot of different ways of learning, methods that did and did not work for me. So after like going into college, I'm definitely going to know, where do I struggle? When do I need to give myself grace? What I need to do to advocate for myself. I've also learned a lot about how to advocate for myself. That's a whole different thing, but yeah.
Leslie, I'm 65 years old and I'm still wrestling with how to communicate complex ideas to people. And I feel like I'm gaining a little bit of confidence in this moment. And so it's really awesome to hear you talk about that. That is a lifelong skill for sure. But it can also grow and develop over time. That's awesome.
So I wanted to make sure we see a lot of questions in the chat about MTC, and I know we talked about cohort, and we have a lot of questions about sending the transcript to the colleges. And so I don't know if you hear a thing.
Yeah,
Do you hear like a
that's okay.
yeah, I think it's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we want to talk about that, but we will, there are two tracks we can go down. So even though we had these cross-curricular competencies, when it came time to decide to do the mastery transcript, I didn't want to just take what had already been the cohort competencies and just say, okay, we're just going to keep repeating the past. And so I put to the students, when we knew we were going to do the learning records and have a pilot, I put to the students, what competencies do you think that schools, that students, especially from our school, should develop, are developing, and will be able to showcase basically, what does learning matter to you? Like, what are those things? And so I put that out to them, and we met, and I have some pictures if you wanted me to show that. And we met like last June about this time, right? Do you all remember that, after the AP test? And so it was just a general, put that out there to everybody, come together and let's create the competencies together. So I'm just going to, I'm not the greatest at Zoom, share that. And I think I'm going to have to go back. So I'm going to share just to give you some pictures. Sorry. So we basically, the students, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so basically we created the competencies together. We, had profile of a graduate, portrait of a graduate, and then the cross-curricular competencies. But it was like, no, we're starting from scratch. Like, what do you think? What do you want to showcase as the skills that are important to you? And so you can see, right, we did a basic generate, sort, connect thinking routine, and the students, wrote down on sticky notes what they wanted, what they thought the skills were that were going to go into our learning record. And then they had a lot of discussions. You can see some familiar faces here. They, talked about it, they wrangled it out. We had to get it down to, not 20, right? We needed to make it a little less. So I am going to ask Avery, can you take over with kind of what we're seeing here? So I'm not explaining it. Can you share with everybody?
Yeah, of course. So I remember the first meeting was exactly what Miss Blankenship just said. It was everybody just kind of brain dumping onto sticky notes, just what we want from ourselves to be shown at college or for colleges, and what we're proud of and what skills we've developed that we would like to show off with different projects we've done. So first, as I said, just brain dump. And then as we moved on and as we developed in the process, we kind of merged some together. Like maybe one about leadership and one about managing others could go together into one, and just kind of make it go, like Ms. Blankenship said, to not 20, just pare down a little bit on the sheer number of competencies we had. So we just got them to a couple really, really solid competencies that we all agreed on and that we all wanted to see come through. So all of our voices were heard in our final couple that we chose, and everybody had a part in what we chose for all of the bigger domains and the smaller, more detailed areas.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in on what that process was like, or what it meant to you? Anybody?
Yes,
Go for it,
please.
please.
I can jump in. I think it was really fun for when we were doing cross-curricular. Obviously, we already had our set competencies decided for us, and we kind of had to work into those. So it was really exciting to, having used those previously, we could kind of take what we liked out of those and make our own. And I know a lot of us felt like those original competencies that we had been given during cohort didn't fully give us everything that we wanted to showcase in these competencies. So we all kind of had like a little, friendly debate of, we all kind of had our sticky note and we were all fighting for our own kind of competency. And I know there was like truly, I think we probably went through like 2 pads of sticky notes. They were like, we're just scribbling there. There were so many, but coming together, we really kind of noticed these themes, and we kind of were able to create these categories, because even though there was, I think, like 25 of us or something, I feel like there was a lot of people, and we had all kind of come up with our own ideas. They all kind of had these similar themes, and kind of creating those categories was very fun, because it really felt like, this is what I want to showcase, and I'm going to get to showcase this in kind of the way that I want to, and everyone was able to fit what they wanted to into those competencies. And we were able to make sure that kind of we had in our head, okay, these are maybe the assignments I want to go into and show with it, which was kind of interesting because we had already done all the work, and this was more figuring out the groups that we were going to showcase that work in. So I know a lot of us were thinking, oh, I really want to show this paper. How would this fit in to one of these competencies? And it was really nice to be able to make sure that everyone was able to fit what they really wanted to show in their transcript into these competencies.
Mal, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say this day was really exciting, because I think oftentimes, like, we're always told like, oh, in college you'll kind of get to navigate your own learning journey. So I think we all felt very mature and excited on this day, and I think this was one of the best conversations we had as like a cohort, because we all wanted to be there and we were all really excited. No one was like, it wasn't like Miss Blankenship was like kind of forcing us to do this. We all like wanted to do this. And I think I was taking AP biology at the time, and we had just had a unit on like ecosystems and environment. So it was also really interesting to like see how we're all so different. We all had different interests, different like paths, different friend groups, but there was still like common themes, because we're all from Madison. We all go to the school. We all come from the same like environment. So I thought that was really interesting when we were doing that too. While there was differences and discrepancies between like our themes or our competencies, there was like central understanding and something that connected us all as students, because of how we like where we grew up and like where we learn.
Mallory, can I ask you really quick? Do you recall, sorry, this is a closed question, so I'm kind of fishing, but do you recall a moment where there was a particular competency that really jumped out at you and you were like, wow, I hadn't thought about that before? Or
I think one of them, maybe it was interdisciplinary. We had 2 interdisciplinaries. I think maybe it was interdisciplinary like thinking, and
Yeah.
I'd never thought about that before, because as we were in cohort, everything kind of was intertwined, but I never, let me see which one, interdisciplinary analysis and problem solving. I
Wow.
think it was always something that was like innate that we did because we were in cohort, but I never thought about it being a foundational skill. I never really thought about how every subject, everything I did inside of school, outside of school was kind of intertwined. So I think it was really interesting when someone brought that up and had that as its own category. I was like, that's really fascinating, because it's something innate, but it's something we almost do. We've always done naturally, but to call it out, I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, Mallory. That's really awesome insight.
Also, what you're seeing on the school or on the screen is just our, competencies that we ended up with. We started this process in May of last year. In June, we continued with drafting. The language that you see, a lot of it is the students' language. And so I was very thankful that I had taught them how to use nerdy words really well, because like they created it. And then just going forward, we also in the summer, this might play a video, so I'm going to go past it. In the summer, oh no, that's going into the thing. We then regrouped over the summer. I continued to bother them and hound them because we needed to create the Mastery Learning Records in the fall. So we needed to get the competencies correct. So we had Zoom conversations over the summer and people kind of popped in as they could. We compacted them, we revised the terminology. And most importantly, of course, as a pedagogical nerdo and someone who believes, right, in improving school and all those things, just having those conversations with students was just one of the best parts of my life in the summer. And just, you know, I need to have those conversations more with kids. So we finalized the competencies. Here you'll see our final came down to 5 domains, 60 competencies. And then Avery, I might have you jump in. Now we need to get to, like, it's showtime. You guys needed to make it, right? And then maybe Kira, please jump into, and anybody else, about what it felt like to create your learner record.
Yeah, so I can definitely talk on this. I really kind of was just there for the ride, for the making the sticky notes and the Zoom meetings over the summer, and I was contributing and I felt like I was doing something. And then when it came time to actually put stuff into the record, it was kind of a shock. I was like, oh, so this is real and this is going to colleges and people are going to see this. And I was really excited because we had all been working so hard to create the domains and the competencies. And I'd been working really hard to like find evidence and figure out how to switch stuff from my personal account to my school account to upload it into the portal that we were using. But I made it look exactly how I wanted it to look. I put in a ton of effort because I just submitted all my college applications. So I was in the mode of making really short, meaningful descriptions of things so it would fit the character limit. So I was on a roll with that and I was very proud of what I'd created. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I was one of the first people to submit to a college. Yeah, I had it sent off and I was one of the first, so we had no idea what to expect. And I eventually, I don't know if you want me to talk about this now, Miss Blankenship, the Colorado College.
Go for it. Yeah, go
So
for it.
I didn't know if any of the schools were gonna look at it even because it was just gonna be in like the extra information section and in Miss Blankenship's letter of recommendation. So we did not know what to expect. They could overlook it and never take a glance at it, or they could get really into it. And I looked at one of my acceptance letters. I got accepted into Colorado College, and they actually mentioned the program by name at the end. Someone took the time to mention it at the end of the acceptance letter, which I thought was insanely cool.
Wow.
I sent a screenshot to Ms. Blankenship, and we were both freaking out. It was a really great experience, and I actually did send an email back explaining a little bit about what it was, and then they had an all expenses paid thing to fly me out to Colorado and tour, so I got to talk to people actually at the school about my whole experience with it and just give them some details.
That connects really nicely to a question that was in the chat as well. Thank you for sharing about that, Avery. It doesn't surprise me that Colorado College in particular would go for it. So we had a question in the chat about which, you know, whether colleges are paying attention to this or not, right? And I tried to offer a little bit of an answer by chat. You know, I think it depends on the type of college, which is why I was just saying, like, doesn't surprise me that Colorado College would care about that because they are a very student-centered environment and their curriculum is very student-centered. And so I think it depends a lot on the school, right? How much value they give it. In connection to that, though, too, we had a question about the value that about how the adults at home are seeing this. How have this came up quite a bit back in the chat, but I want to elevate this question because it's connected in terms of how much your own caregivers saw value in this different way of doing things. And then I'd love to know if others of you had the experience of the college, yes, paying attention, or no, never mentioning it at all.
I guess I can talk a little bit about it. So my dad has been super involved in my college process since like sophomore year, ever since he's been like pressing me about it, which has been good. But I actually like never told him I was doing this. And so then when it came time to apply to colleges, I was like, oh, I actually can't submit my application yet because I have to attach this thing. And he was like super confused and he didn't really understand it. But I was like, it's gonna be fine. Just trust me. And so he did. So I submitted it, and I think it worked like really well in my favor. I applied to a lot of like very rich schools that I got into, and I was like, I don't know how I got into it. And for some of the schools, I got into like their very like interdisciplinary programs, and I was like, that's insane. And I'm assuming it is because I also did talk about cohort on my application, but I also sent in this interdisciplinary portfolio. And then I heard my dad talking about it the other day to my neighbor, and he was like, I feel like that's what got her into most of her colleges. So I guess my dad did like it now, and he values it now.
Wow.
I happen to know we have a parent on the call. At the risk of mortifying Avery by asking this question, I don't know, Kathleen, if you are hearing us and might be able to and willing to turn on your mic and share from a mom's perspective what your experience with this was.
Sure. I think, hi, everybody. I think Avery had such a, that's what I'm looking for. She just had such an amazing learning experience by, first of all, being part of cohort, and secondly, being part of the MTC. We saw a real value in that on the reflection, as a lot of the kids have talked about, being able to reflect on what she was learning and to be able to understand how all of the subjects came together, and really gave her such a wide-ranging education. It was so much better than a lot of other classes that she took that were not part of the cohort. And the MTC really, and like she said, with the colleges, I think with every application, a lot of the colleges were super impressed with, it was the combination of both cohort and doing some of the higher level classes through the cohort model, and then with the MTC. So I think it definitely made a difference in the application process.
Kathleen, may I ask a follow-up question? You know, colleges, one of the things that colleges are most concerned about is whether or not the student is actually going to make it all the way through to graduation. And I wonder if you had a sense, as this was happening in real time, that Avery's determination and resilience, was, what I'm asking? It's like was coming into play, and that this was partly why the colleges were responding the way they were.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Just thinking about that colleges care a lot about resilience and determination, and whether the student is going to make it all the way through the 4 years of college.
Right.
And that what was being presented, there was evidence being presented, in addition to interdisciplinary thinking and so on and so forth, that Avery is one of those applicants who is a real good bet to make it all the way through and succeed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It definitely set her apart. All of the kids who were involved in the program and the MTC program. Obviously, I think the fact that they were willing to take on this project and willing to go above and beyond definitely stood out to the schools.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
As you can see, look out, Josh, I've taken over the screen sharing here. And since we're talking about Avery, and we're talking about the transcript, I realized an oversight that we never actually showed one. And so this is what
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. And so Avery, you can see, right, the competencies, right, showing up here. And this is, how many pieces of evidence she has provided. And the lighter rings are the foundational skills, and the darker rings are advanced. And so she's provided evidence and reflections on those. And you can see her competency list. She quote earned all the competencies. I was the one who went in and checked off. I knew she had, because pretty much I've taught her for the past 2 years and know all of the most of the things that she had put in there, and I just knew, right? But she had to add in more evidence. You can see there's a So Avery, can you talk a little bit about the evidence that you did put in there? I would love to hear from you why you chose to showcase certain evidence and what creating this, what are we looking at here that represents you?
Yeah, so I really just compiled all of the things that I was most proud of. Like there was one that was an essay, like a research compilation that I had done, and I felt really smart when I did it, so I wanted to showcase that. It was about disproportionate incarceration rates of nonviolent criminals, and I did so much research on this topic, and I became an expert. Yeah, the informed activism to improve America. It was one of my favorite projects I had done, and there was absolutely no way that colleges would have known that I had done that much and done work at that advanced of a level of my junior year of high school. So I was really excited to show that off and all of the processes I had done to get to my final product. And then I did use some pieces of evidence that were featured on my Common application, like my Girl Scout Gold Award and my President's Service Award, but I wanted to feature them again and give them more of a description because I think the Common App didn't do it justice, and it didn't have all of the details of the work I actually had to put into the project. And some of the other things, I think I included a couple other like essays or things I had done for school specifically for my classes. And all of those were things like this informed activism to improve America that I had put in just so much time and effort into that I wanted to be displayed and seen.
Beth, I wonder if we could do another one of Avery's colleagues, peers.
Yes.
And while you're pulling it up too, I have to say I love hearing, it sounds like you all, the students, got to make a lot of the decisions about what got spotlit, right? So it wasn't just that it was authentic in the sense that it was your own reflections, but that you were getting to make decisions about what the focus was, and what you included. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Kira, here we go. Can you talk us through a little bit? Let me go to your published record. What were some things that you determined that you were going to evidence and such? Can you talk us through it? And I will get the actual record pulled up here.
Yeah, sure. So I think my biggest piece of evidence was the same as Avery's, the Informed Activism in America project. And I am a nursing major, so I chose to write about the nursing shortage and kind of like researching solutions on how to help fix that. And I thought that being able to include this is really valuable because I didn't have many like extracurriculars related to my major, but this was like a major thing. I spent so much time on it. So I really liked that I was able to display to colleges that like I had experience in this field and that, I had done like things related to it in school. And then, yeah, she's pulling that up, it looks like. But yeah, it was very, very long project. And I feel like I gained a lot of insight on my major and just like the way that the whole system works in general. And then another big piece of evidence that I had was my DECA paper. So I'm not sure if anyone knows what DECA is, but it's essentially like a business competition. And I've participated in our school's chapter of DECA for 3 years. It's been very big, like a huge part of my life, even though I'm not a business major. But I feel like a lot of the skills are transferable. And I was able to put in one of the papers that I wrote, and just kind of like display what I spent so much time on and kind of show like skills like analysis, problem solving that I feel like I wouldn't have been able to put in through a Common App.
Yeah, that's 21. Is this 21 slides here? This or
Yeah, it's 21 pages, I believe.
21
It's a very
pages.
long paper.
Oh, yes. I remember looking at this and saying, yep, competent, advanced. I remember that. Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Who else would like to show off? This is my favorite part. Like looking through the evidence, I would say I knew these students and then I knew them even more. And I was just, like I said, I'm so proud of them to like all that they accomplished. And I wanted to make sure that was your Mal. How about, sorry, jump over your Leslie, but we can go to, here we go. Mal, what's something you want to showcase? Everybody should, everyone will. Yeah.
So like to hear, I'm also going into the medical field, or that's my intended major. I'm majoring in human biology. And so one of my big things, or my spike to my college application, was the nursing academy that I did at the Falls Church Academy for nursing. And so my junior year, I was a part of the Intro to Nursing 1 and 2 class. And during that class, I actually participated in clinicals to receive my certified nurse aid assistant. So that's what I spent the majority of my junior year kind of working on. So what a CNA kind of does is they're mostly known for working in the long-term care facilities and being caregivers. So I did that junior year, and then this year I'm enrolled in the PCT class, which is a patient care tech. And so actually next Friday, I'm testing for my phlebotomy license. So hopefully over the summer, I'll be able to work. I'm trying to work with Inova for the blood donating, but a part of med school, like the biggest part, and what I've talked to my advisors at school for, is getting clinical hours. So that's one of the major things in applying to med school. And then also, like to the other girls, I had my huge research paper, and this actually inspired me to apply for my minor, which is public health. So I did an expose on the underground industry of child trafficking, and that actually Miss Blankenship knows because she helped me. That was one of my supplementals. I talked about a lot about why I wanted to go to a school. So when I was applying to the California schools, especially the ones in LA, I talked about how I wanted to go into the the trafficking industry and the sexual exploitation industry, and how I wanted to combine my knowledge from health, like my healthcare background, and then my public health background, and kind of create a program to help mitigate the amount of women or people in general falling victim to that. And then I think my biggest competency skills, or the one I shined the most in, was leadership. So throughout like my high school career, I was really into like cheer. I was cheer captain last year, so I talked about that. I worked on the National Honor Society executive board. I worked on the executive board at my nursing school. So I thought that was really cool to talk about, because although it was listed in my Common App, I got to show evidence. And I think especially for cheer, I think a lot of people just think, oh, you like shake your pom-poms and do some kicks and you go call some cheers. But I think it was one of the most enlightening and something that really matured me in high school, leading a team and also just managing other people in your age and learning how to navigate that. And I thought that should have been represented more than just like a line in my college application.
Hey, Mallory, I wanted to share with you that we had a wonderful moment here in Hawaii a few weeks ago when one of our largest public high schools, who partnered with a local hospital, they opened a health clinic on campus.
Oh,
on
wow,
the public.
did they?
Yeah, and the students are actually serving as, well, it's almost like doing a residency, but they're in the health pathway or the health academy. And they're actually people from the hospital who are staffing. And so there's this really rich learning environment.
Yeah.
And now you've got the public coming on campus to actually go to the clinic and all that. So, wow, amazing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when I tell people that I have my CNA license or I'm about to become a PCT, they always are like, you're so young, like almost discouraged by it. But I think like, especially doing it, 18 is young, or like 17 is young, but I think we're more like competent than people realize. And I was thinking about that too, like when I was like thinking about like the middle schoolers, like I had deep thoughts and I was like cognizant. I feel like people like treated us like we didn't know what was happening. I knew what was happening in middle school, like, and I feel like I know what's happening now. And I think that's like another thing the Mastery Transcript helps with. I think like even myself, I didn't even know, like I'm capable of doing more than I thought. I never thought at 18 years old I'd be able to work in the medical field, but I'm doing it. And I think it's just,
That's awesome. Fabulous.
Do we have time for one more, do you think, Josh, or do we need to move on to Q&A?
Maybe we do, because we really want to, because I know it's late on the East Coast already, or kind of getting there, and we've really got about 7 more minutes. So maybe we do open it up now to insights, comments, even additional questions. I think,
awesome.
Yeah, reactions would be great. Yeah.
We're getting so many wonderful reactions in the chat, but I wonder if folks might want to raise a hand or turn on a mic and share out in a way that'll stay with the recording, so that it lives on beyond tonight. My favorite, most recent one there is Jane asking, can one of these
Yes.
students please run for president?
President. Oh my God, please.
Who would like to jump in with comments and responses? Questions as well? Cindy.
I'll jump in. I work in FCPS and know Beth and got to work with the principal at Madison, and I absolutely love this, and I'm so excited to see the actual records now and how they've turned out. I would love to just I think just about even Fairfax County, this is just so groundbreaking, and I hope that you're going to be given more opportunities to share this work. And where it could be going. I do have a question of how have you been able to expand it at Madison or yeah. But
No,
I think the evidence of where the girls have all gone is amazing, and it just speaks for itself of the success of it.
Yeah, so we're working on a strategy going forward. We're just, getting through AP testing and everything. And then we have strategy planning to do. So I might invite you to come along to that. There's an email coming your way.
Just I wanted to say that I think it helps the students maybe bring out what they really are capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of you seem like you've kind of impressed yourselves, actually. I've learned to never underestimate the students, but it's like when you're only fed that kind of standardized worksheet kind of stuff, you really don't get a chance to really understand yourself. What am I good at? What are my skills? And that kind of a thing. What am I really able to do when I really put the energy into it? And it's something I really want to do. And I think it's great that you're able to get this when you're still in high school, actually. So you'll have a chance to take better advantage of what you get in college. And then you, as I said earlier in the chat, you'll be much better prepared when you get out of college and you start forging your future. And you'll know yourself, you'll know what you want to do, you'll know where you fit, how you can best contribute, things like that. And so I think you'll be very successful and also very fulfilled, actually, which is very important, I believe.
Love that. Love that, Mark, too. And I was thinking about that same thing, that feeling of I think it's so unfortunate how often we underestimate what students are capable of, right? And there's an old adage from EL education, the Expeditionary Learning Network, about how when you take a step back, you allow students to take a step forward. And all of you have echoed that idea today in one way or another, right? When you're given that space and allowed, there's still a power word in there, right? But given the space to really manifest yourselves and to share what you believe and really do things that others might not expect you to be able to do, you're totally able to step up. This is it's a great moral of the story for all the educators here, right? What might happen if we trusted students a little bit more, starting at 3 years old, not even waiting until 16, but really trusting them the whole way through a little bit more. Other comments?
Yeah. Insights, thoughts?
I have a quick one. I'm wondering if, Beth, that you're doing some research with this, because, and especially all the students, if you'd be willing to keep in touch with someone who is going to track this, because if this kind of rich experience is not documented, then sometimes it just goes away. And this is the start of something. I see it going in so many wonderful directions, but I'm not sure if this is something you'd want to take on, Beth, as part of something you track over time, or if somebody who would. But I think it would be a shame if this isn't part of the process, and hopefully everybody who's on the screen right now would be willing to stay in touch over time to tell the long-term impact of something that is much more valuable than a score on a given day at a given time.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see, right? Mal, Leslie, Avery, you know, everyone, those topics that were so important to them. You know, I have worked with other colleagues. One of my colleagues is on this call, Elliot, and we have done that and reached back out to students to see if their capstone projects that they did way back when are still something that is aligned to what they're currently doing, you know, years later. These students also know that, you know, I want to write a book with them. I'm writing a book with students and
Awesome.
student pedagogical protagonism. And they know that that email is coming to add their chapter to that book. They know this, so you've been forewarned many times. And so we're really looking forward to capturing, you're right, and documenting this, because otherwise, right, we need the history so that we can reflect on it, improve upon it, and give students more opportunities to reflect even beyond this time.
And Barbara, I can add that that Mel and I at What School Could Be, oh boy, we're definitely tracking on this. We're all about storytelling, and Beth doesn't quite know what's coming, but we've invited her to a meeting where we've already dropped a line in the water with a little minnow on it. And so, yeah, it's a very important point that you're making, because the story, what I've experienced with MTC up to this point, actually, honestly, is quite a bit of frustration that it hasn't gotten as far as it needs to since it was initially started. This is really the first time that I've heard from students about what its real impact is. This piece of video, we're recording this session today, is worth gold, in my opinion. So that's great, Barbara. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I wanted to jump in too. I've been opening pages on the MTC website as well. I want to echo what you were just saying, Josh, that I've been worried about whether it was only going to function in high-level private schools, if you will, right? If that was the only environment where it was going to work. And I offered a link in the chat, not to become I don't want to do advertising for them for free, but there are some really great stories from parents, from students, from teachers, and their current total membership is 372 schools, which are now evenly split between 185 private schools and 187 public schools. So I would say that that's also a really good sign if it's working in public school environments where we know the restrictions are so much more intense. This has been amazing. I just want to thank the students, as well as Beth and Derek, of course, too, but that really hearing from all of you about your experience is what really made this session so powerful and so meaningful. So thank you all for your involvement. And Josh, you should have the last word. This is your Motley crew.
Yes, but this is the Motley Crew's elevation of student protagonism. I think I'm just thinking to myself, Jennifer, what a crazy awesome way to end this particular school year. My tank is full. I've got fuel for months and years to come. So again, super appreciate you students who have joined us today. Beth and Derek, thank you so much. All of you who came and stayed with us for this entire time. I know it's already well into the evening on the East Coast. This is really what School Could Be is all about. So we really appreciate you. If everybody can give me a thumbs up, I'm actually going to, I've already taken well, let's see. Is there anybody who hasn't turned their camera on that could, so that we could take a group screenshot? I know, Chris, you're on the road, so you can't, but let's see. There you go. Anita, thank you. Awesome. Let's see if anybody else. Virginia, awesome. Thank you. Okay, let me queue up here, and then we can take a epic and spectacular screenshot. Okay, here we go. All right, thank you, everybody. Perfect.
Awesome.
Yay, thank you.
I want to make sure we mention quickly too, Josh, that we have another Protagonism event next week on support for Parkinson's tremors. Mel has dropped a link in there for registration. This is a middle school group that will be working with us next Wednesday. And we would love, of course, to have you there if you're able to join us. And Beth, you made a comment in here too about, and I think that's a really important point to end on, to make sure that all students get access to these kinds of experiences. I know that I often feel like a unicorn as somebody who didn't have to get grades in high school. I didn't worry about grades at any point till I got to college. And I'm really grateful for that. And I want to just echo that point that every child deserves that chance to show off who they are and to learn to talk about and think about themselves as learners the way that this amazing group of students has done tonight. So thank you all so much for sharing your stories.
Well played. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, students. You
Thank
rock.
you.
Hashtag you rock.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.